ties between Pakistan and the United States are deteriorating. This is the top story at 8:30 p.m. tonight. This is also the latest development in just another example of how those ties are deteriorating. President Donald Trump's administration has started cutting scores of Pakistani officers from coveted training and educational programs in the United States. Now, for the past decade, these training programs have been the hallmark of bilateral ties between the two countries. This move is one of the first known impacts of Mr. Trump's decision to suspend U.S. security assistance to Pakistan to compel it to crack down on terror. The move also comes amid Pakistan's growing camaraderie towards Russia. Pakistan and Russia signed a deal under which Pakistani soldiers will be trained by Russian military agencies. The two countries held the first meeting of Russia-Pakistan Joint Military Consultative Committee just this week. In fact, the two sides discussed the present status of their defense relations as well, with the aim of further strengthening, expanding and diversifying mutual cooperation.
Said the exercise was of great defense cooperation.
On the broadcast with me right now, Giles Gibson, WION's correspondent in Washington, D.C. Also with us is our Pakistan Bureau Chief Anis Malik, who's joining us from Islamabad. Gentlemen, good evening. Thank you both for making time. Giles, to you first, what are the implications of this move when it comes to ties between the U.S. and Pakistan?
Well, Aisha, we have to stress that this is a report from Reuters, the Reuters news agency, speaking to US officials anonymously. So we haven't yet had any confirmation or any official comment from the Pentagon or the White House on this report from the Reuters news agency. But clearly the effects of this will, if this report is accurate, will be pretty far-ranging. This will affect, for example, the International Military Education and Training Program, which for years has meant that friendly officers from friendly nations to the United States come and train in different sort of US military training programs. So clearly, if those sorts of training opportunities aren't being made available to officers from Pakistan, then that's clearly going to undermine the sorts of close ties between officers on two sides, between the two countries as we look forward.
Right. Stay with me, Giles. Anas, that of course we can't, forget the fact that this is a report. However, looking at the details within it, it would augur not so well for an incoming government in Pakistan, one that is still finding its feet and has already received a lot of criticism in the lead up even to a simple thing such as the inauguration ceremony of the new Prime Minister.
Indeed, it's a greater shock for the incoming government, as I would say, because primarily Pakistan and US hold at least 17 bilateral military exercises, that is military to military contact in terms of education training as well. And we've seen the Pakistani top hierarchy, the army hierarchy, they're all educated by the US War College as well. We see that mentioned in the ISPR releases. They say that if a general is promoted, so and so, this is what he's done. And that crucial line, it says that he's graduated from so and so year from that US War College. So it is a big setback here in terms of manpower, educating the manpower on ground, especially those who are to deem and who are to take command of the army in future. So it is indeed a greater setback for the Pakistan army. Sure. What Reuters has written is indeed more or less what we've picked up from our sources has been more or less true, because primarily there are at least 3 programs that have been cut short on which the officers who were lined up to go to the United States, they were asked to not to go, in fact, and then they had to be alternatively sent to Australia. Sure. For training purposes. Yes, Aisha.
Right. Giles, before we wrap up on this, though, I want to ask you, already Anas has pointed out that the nervousness on the Pakistan side is quite apparent if this report is in fact accurate. But I'm sure that this is also going to cause concern within the US administration ranks, given that there have been strong ties between the US and Pakistan for years on end. Things have only sort of taken a turn for the worse ever since Mr. Trump has come to office.
That's right. There's already reaction coming into this. Dan Feldman, who's a former US Special Representative for Afghanistan and Pakistan, he called this decision, he called this report very short-sighted and myopic. Really, the concern is that these programs are designed to sort of foster relationships between officers away from those sort of very high-level connections that exist between the two governments. So officers will come to the United States, will train with American officers as young officers, and as they move up the ladder, they move up through their career, those relationships are supposed to stay in place and help the sort of partnership between the two countries. So really the concern, if you're suspending a program like this, is that it will perhaps an entire generation of Pakistani military and American military officers won't have that same sort of unofficial connection, that unofficial bond that they develop through these training programs.
Indeed, and I suppose if the end goal here is to rein in Pakistan on terror, does that get met through a program, a suspension such as this, or is it more a short-term slap on the wrist? We leave it at that. Giles Gibson, Anas Malik, thank you both for taking out the time to speak with us and bring us more perspective from both the US and Pakistan. We are going to stick with Pakistan actually going forward. This was the first high-level contact between India and Pakistan since the Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi congratulated Pakistan's Prime Minister-elect Imran Khan over the phone. We're talking about a meeting that's taken place between the Indian High Commissioner to Pakistan, that's Ajay Bisaria, and his deputy JP Singh, who met with Imran Khan at his residence earlier today. The meeting lasted about 28 minutes and the Indian envoy gifted Mr. Khan a bat signed by the Indian cricket team. The Indian side described this meeting as a courtesy call in which all issues of bilateral concern did come up for discussion. The PTI said that Mr. Khan himself discussed the need to restart dialogue between the two countries on all outstanding issues, including Kashmir. Imran Khan also expressed hope that the SAARC summit would be held in Islamabad. Pakistan's ruling party said that following the phone call by the Indian Prime Minister to Imran Khan, there was optimism that the relations between the two countries would move forward. After the meeting, the Indian High Commissioner took to Twitter to say this, quote, called on Imran Khan and his team today for a positive, constructive conversation. So a short, terse tweet there from Mr. Bisaria. But the comprehensive bilateral dialogue process, as agreed upon in 2015, has been stalled due to lack of Pakistani action against suspects involved in the Pathankot and Mumbai attacks, as well as repeated cross-border raids by terrorists and state-backed terror groups. In his election victory speech, Imran Khan had reached out to India saying that Pakistan expects improved trade relations with New Delhi. He'd also said that Pakistan will take 2 steps towards resolution of issues with India if New Delhi takes the first step. Speaking of Pakistan, it's official. Former Indian cricketers Kapil Dev and Navjot Singh Sidhu have been invited for Imran Khan's inauguration. It will be Khan will be administered the oath of office on 18th of August. His party, the PTI, confirmed the date of the swearing-in, as well as the fact that the invitation has been extended to the Indian cricketers. This news was confirmed this afternoon. The Indian sporting icons have been quoted as saying that they will attend the oath if invited. The US-Turkey economic war continues to escalate, with the Trump administration now imposing 20% tariffs on Turkish aluminium and 50% tariffs on steel. The US's latest move comes even as the Turkish currency, the lira, took a tumble of 19% against the dollar. The US President Donald Trump tweeted to say, quote, "I have authorized a doubling of tariffs on steel and aluminium with respect to Turkey as their currency. The Turkish lira slides rapidly downward against our very strong dollar. Aluminium will now be 20% and steel 50%. Our relations with Turkey are not good at this time," end quote. Calling the economic sanctions a national struggle, Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan called on his compatriots to convert their dollar banknotes and gold to liras in a bid to absorb the market shock.
Yastığının altında doları, avrosu, altını olan varsa bunu gitsin Türk lirasıyla bankalarımızda bozdursun. Bu bir milli yerli mücadeledir. Bu bir bize karşı ekonomik savaş ilan edenlere benim milletimin cevabı olacaktır.
Now, tensions between the allies, NATO allies, have escalated over the detention of the American pastor Andrew Brunson in Turkey. Brunson is facing terror charges related to a failed coup attempt in Turkey in 2016. Both Brunson and the US government have denied the charges. The US Vice President Mike Pence has announced plans to create a sixth branch of the United States military by the year 2020. Now, this new and separate military service will be known as Space Force. In his Pentagon address, Pence said that the Trump government will work to build bipartisan support in the federal legislature, saying that the creation of a Space Force is an idea whose time has come.
Just as in the past when we created the Air Force, establishing the Space Force is an idea whose time has come. The space environment has fundamentally changed in the last generation. What was once peaceful and uncontested is now crowded and adversarial. Today, other nations are seeking to disrupt our space-based systems and challenge American supremacy in space as never before. America will always seek peace in space as on the earth, but history proves that peace only comes through strength. And in the realm of outer space, the United States Space Force will be that strength in the years ahead.
Pence's remarks coincided with the U.S. Defense Ministry report outlining the steps needed to create a Space Force, something that the ministry doesn't have the power to do so on its own. Critics allege that the creation of this force is an unnecessary and expensive bureaucratic endeavor. Staying with the U.S., Donald Trump's in-laws have been sworn in as U.S. citizens at a ceremony in New York City. They received their citizenship by way of a process known as chain migration. Melania Trump's parents, Victor and Amalia, have been living in the U.S. as legal permanent residents, but they were green card holders all this while. Now, they've received their citizenship.
Citizenship was just awarded to Victor and Amalia Knaus. They have travailed a wonderful journey, like most have, millions have, in getting citizenship and waiting the requisite period of time. The application, the process, the interview was no different than anybody else's, other than security arrangements to facilitate today.
Trump's in-laws became eligible for green cards and then U.S. citizenship because of their daughter Melania, who herself became an American citizen in 2006 when she married Donald Trump. The president's in-laws arrived at the citizenship oath ceremony in the Manhattan Federal Building, accompanied by police. Their lawyer, Michael Wiles, said that the president's in-laws would like to keep their immigration matters private for the time being.
In this golden experiment, these doors that are in America remain hinged open to beautiful people as they have today. They would appreciate their privacy, and we just thank everybody for their attention to this very important dialogue that we're having on immigration. This is an example of it going right.
However, the granting of the citizenship to Melania Trump's parents has drawn a lot of flack and criticism. Remember, in his shrill rhetoric against immigration, which has been one of his pet issues, Donald Trump has harped on how chain migration was being used by people to gain permanent resident status and citizenship in the U.S. In February this year itself, the Trump government had laid out a proposal to cut down in a big way on family-based immigration. This proposal, even if ratified, will not affect Mr. Trump's in-laws since they've now been formally given citizenship. Interestingly, it's not Mr. Trump's in-laws alone who've benefited from chain immigration. His own paternal grandparents also arrived from Germany and Scotland respectively and gained citizenship through the same process.